Have you ever wondered how something as innocent as a birthday could turn into a burden? In Australia, January means summer. It means beaches, road trips, family reunions, and a desperate urge to escape. But for one woman, January is something else entirely. It's her day, her command, her unshakable claim on the calendar. And for me, every year has become a quiet war between friendship, family, and my own sense of freedom. The question that haunts me is simple. Is a friend's birthday worth sacrificing your life for? Every January, right after the fireworks fade and the champagne glasses are put away. One of my closest friends insists the world must gather for her birthday. Not just any gathering, it has to be marked on calendars months in advance, locked in, no excuses. And while it may sound simple, it has quietly become one of the most complicated traditions of my adult life. Because when loyalty to a friend collides with family, vacations, personal freedom, and the pressure of expectations, someone is bound to get hurt. This is the story of how one birthday changed the way I saw friendship, obligation, and myself. I remember the first time I realized her birthday wasn't just a celebration. It was a command. It was late August. The air in Sydney still holding on to that cool, brittle edge before summer rolled in with its unbearable heat. I had known Claire only a short while, then 6 months, at most. We'd met through mutual friends. One of those happy accidents where you find yourself talking to someone at a crowded dinner party and realizing you've laughed for an entire evening without noticing the time. She was magnetic. She could draw people into her orbit with the tilt of her head, the sparkle in her voice, the way she seemed to listen with her whole body. But that night, as we left the restaurant, she leaned in with an intensity that almost startled me. "So," she said, her eyes narrowing as if she were letting me in on some great secret, "January 5th. My birthday? I always tell people early. Don't book anything. You'll be there, right?" I laughed, a little surprised. Most people I knew didn't mention birthdays until a week before, maybe 2. This was 4 months in advance. I thought it was charming at first, even funny. Her insistence came across as a kind of quirk, the way some people always order the same drink or carry the same battered notebook everywhere they go. "Of course," I said. Wouldn't miss it, and that was it. A small promise in passing. I didn't realize then that I'd just signed up for a tradition that would follow me year after year, shaping my choices, tugging at my conscience, and testing my patience more than I could have imagined. Claire's birthdays in those early years were actually fun, more than fun, really. They were events. The first one I attended was at a rooftop bar overlooking the harbour. The sky had one of those impossible summer blues, the kind that makes you forget winter ever existed. There were fairy lights strung between poles, music drifting from hidden speakers, the smell of grilled seafood mixed with sweet cocktails. Everyone seemed beautiful under that sky, including Claire, who stood at the center of it all, like she was hosting the world's most effortless party. She introduced me to people as if I had been her friend for years, weaving me into her circle with ease. And I liked it. I liked being part of something that felt glamorous, special. But what struck me even more was how she reminded everyone, every single person, that this night had been announced months earlier. She made jokes about it, you see. "I told you all back in September, so no excuses." The crowd laughed, glasses clinked, and it felt harmless. Only later did I notice the sharpness beneath her humor. If someone hadn't shown up, she would comment on it never cruelly, but with a kind of sting disguised as a smile. "Oh, Daniel didn't make it." "Shame," I warned him. "People always say they're busy in January, but you know, if it matters. You make it work." The words lingered in my head long after the music faded. The years rolled on, and with them, the tradition solidified. Every late August or early September, without fail, Claire would make her announcement. Sometimes it came in the middle of a casual dinner, sometimes in a group chat, sometimes even as a playful Instagram story tagged with save the date nor excuses. It didn't matter how it was delivered. The message was always the same. Her birthday wasn't just hers. It belonged to all of us. By then, I had been dating Emily, my partner, for about 2 years. Emily loved to travel. January, for her, was the perfect time her office shut down for a brief window. Her family often planned reunions, and the thought of escaping the heat with a quick trip abroad was always tempting. But Claire's birthday hung over our calendars like a red warning sign. Every time Emily suggested a trip Japan for the snow, New Zealand for the beaches, even just a week in the countryside, I felt that pang of hesitation. "We can't," I would say. "Claire's birthday is that week." Emily would sigh, frustrated but understanding. At first, but as the years went on, the sighs turned sharper, edged with resentment. "So her birthday matters more than us spending time together?" she asked once, her voice tight. I didn't have a good answer, because in my head, it wasn't about her birthday itself. It was about the weight of a promise, the fear of disappointing someone who seemed to take absence as betrayal by the 5th year. What once felt quirky now felt suffocating. I started to dread August, not because of the cold winds or the dragging nights, but because I knew the announcement was coming. Like clockwork, Claire would remind us, and like clockwork, my chest would tighten. Friends began to whisper about it too. Some stopped showing up, quietly accepting the consequences of her disapproval. Others went out of obligation, their smiles strained, their laughter hollow, but me, I kept going. Every year, I told myself it was loyalty, that she had been a good friend, that birthdays mattered, but deep down I knew it was fear. Fear of confrontation. Fear of being labeled selfish. Fear of losing someone who once made me feel special. And so, when Emily brought up the idea of spending the next January in Europe, her dream trip, something she had been saving for, I felt torn in a way I had never felt before. "We deserve this," she said. "You and me. Just us, please." Her eyes searched mine, and all I could think about was Claire's voice, sharp and insistent, reminding me that absence was inexcusable. That's when I realized this wasn't about a birthday anymore. It was about control. It was about freedom. And it was about how much of my life I was willing to give away to someone else's expectations. It began, as it always did, with a message. Late August. The winter chill was fading. The jacaranda trees outside my apartment window just beginning to bud with their ghostly purple blossoms. I had finished a long day at work and was nursing a beer when my phone buzzed on the table. A notification. Our group chat, and there it was. Claire had posted a selfie, her hair swept up effortlessly, a glass of wine in her hand, laughter caught mid-frame. Underneath the photo, the caption glowed like a verdict. January 5th, darlings. You know the drill. Save the date. No excuses this time. Within seconds, the replies began to roll in. Heart emojis. champagne bottle gifs, the predictable chorus of "can't wait" and "wouldn't miss it." The ritual had begun again, as reliable as the turning of the seasons. I stared at the message longer than I meant to. The pit in my stomach grew heavy, familiar. It wasn't just a party invite. It was a claim on my time, my loyalty, my presence, and for reasons I could never quite explain. It always felt like there was no way out. Emily walked into the room just then, tying her hair up after a shower. She caught the look on my face before I could hide it. "What is it?" she asked. I turned the screen toward her. She sighed instantly, her expression tightening. "Of course," she muttered. Like clockwork. I tried to laugh it off. "It's just one night." Her eyes snapped to mine. "It's never just one night. It's every year. Every January. Do you realize that?" I looked away because I did realize it. I realized it more than anyone. The tension simmered for days before it finally boiled over. We were sitting at the kitchen table one night, Emily scrolling through flights on her laptop. The glow of the screen lit her face, her eyes alive with possibility. "Look," she said, turning the screen toward me. "Rome, Venice, Florence. My parents are planning 2 weeks in Italy this January, and they want us to come with them. This is the perfect chance." My throat tightened. Italy. It was the dream trip Emily had been talking about for years. Something she had saved Pinterest boards for, researched endlessly. Her excitement almost childlike whenever the subject came up, and all I could think about was Claire's face. Her inevitable disappointment if I missed the party. Emily watched me hesitate, and her smile faltered. "You're not seriously thinking about her birthday right now, are you?" I opened my mouth, but she cut me off, her voice rising. "Jesus, Mark, it's a birthday. One night, and you're telling me we might miss a once-in-a-lifetime trip with my family because of her?" "It's not that simple," I said weakly. Her chair scraped against the floor as she pushed back. "No, it is that simple. You just don't want to admit it." Her hands trembled as she pressed them flat against the table. "Do you know what it feels like? To be in a relationship where your partner puts someone else's party above everything we've built together. Above me." Her voice cracked on that last word, and it pierced me deeper than I expected. I tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. "Emily," I said softly, "it's just Claire takes it personally when people don't show." She, what?" Emily snapped. "She punishes people, gives them the silent treatment, and you just go along with it. Mark, do you hear yourself? You're letting her control you." The word hung in the air. Control. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend myself, defend Claire, defend the years of loyalty that suddenly felt like chains. But no words came. That night, Emily went to bed in silence. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the calendar on my phone. January 5th glared back at me like a red warning light. It wasn't just Emily who felt the weight. Over beers one evening, my friend Michael leaned close, his voice low. "I can't keep doing this, mate. Last year, I missed my wife's family reunion because of Claire's party. Do you know how small I felt? Sitting there drinking overpriced cocktails while my kids were calling me from the reunion, asking where I was." He shook his head, bitterness in his tone. "And for what? So Claire can feel important one more year." Another night, Jenna confided in me. "I skipped once. Just once. And Claire froze me out for 3 months. 3 months, Mark. She barely looked at me when we were in the same room. It's exhausting. We laughed about it. The way you laugh about something that isn't funny at all, just to release the tension. But beneath the nervous chuckles was the truth. We were all trapped. Some friends had stopped showing up entirely, quietly accepting the consequences. Others, like me, kept going year after year, because the thought of facing Claire's disappointment felt worse than the inconvenience. But every time, the cost grew higher. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday in November. Emily and I were having dinner with her parents. The smell of garlic and roasted tomatoes filled their kitchen, laughter echoing around the table. Halfway through the meal, her father leaned forward, his eyes bright. "So," he said, "we've booked the villas in Tuscany. January 3rd through the 17th. Everyone's coming. We want you two there with us." Emily's face lit up, her hand squeezing mine under the table. "That's perfect," she whispered. "Isn't it perfect?" My stomach turned to stone. January 5th. I nodded weakly, forcing a smile. That sounds amazing. But Emily knew me too well. The moment her parents left the room to fetch dessert, she turned to me, her expression hard. "Don't," she said. "Don't you dare tell me you're still thinking about Claire's party." I opened my mouth, but she pressed on, her voice trembling with anger and something deeper desperation. "This is it. Mark, I'm not playing this game anymore. If you choose her birthday over this trip, over us, then maybe I don't belong in this relationship." The words landed like a punch. Emily's eyes searched mine, pleading and defiant all at once. I could hear the rain pounding on the roof, the clatter of dishes in the kitchen, the beating of my own heart, and in that moment, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. On one side, Claire, the friend who demanded loyalty, who measured love in attendance and sacrifice. On the other, Emily, the woman I loved, offering me a future, a family, a life not defined by someone else's calendar, and, for the first time in years, I asked myself a question I had been too afraid to face: what if I just said no? January was still months away, but the air in our apartment had already thickened with tension. Every glance, every word between Emily and me was weighted, as if both of us were treading on a thin wire over a dark abyss. The days after her ultimatum felt surreal. I went to work, answered emails, ran errands, but my mind kept circling back to Claire's birthday and the looming trip to Italy. It was a constant mental tug-of-war. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it might be Claire reminding us again. A subtle nudge, a test. Emily tried to talk, to make plans that didn't involve Claire. But even then, I found myself distracted, half listening, imagining her disappointment if I didn't attend. It had become almost Pavlovian. This sense of obligation that had built over years. I realized something uncomfortable about myself. I had allowed a single person's expectation to dictate so much of my life, and yet I felt trapped, as if leaving the orbit of this ritual would be an act of betrayal, not only to Claire, but to the version of myself who had always been loyal. Despite the tension, Emily tried to keep our excitement alive. She made lists, printed itineraries, and suggested side trips within Italy, tasting wine in Tuscany, wandering the streets of Florence at dawn, sitting in cafes in Rome, listening to the bustle of the piazzas. She wanted this to be our adventure, a memory that belonged to us alone. I watched her planning, and each suggestion felt like a whisper in my ear. What about your life? What about your freedom? And yet, every time I imagined telling Claire that I might miss her birthday, a pang of guilt struck me. It was almost absurd. A birthday, yet it had come to symbolize something far larger: loyalty, friendship, and my inability to prioritize myself over someone else's expectations. I began to revisit the past years, in my mind's eye, like rewinding a slow-motion film. The rooftop bar in Sydney, the rooftop in Brisbane, the small backyard in Melbanda sites. Sounds and smells of every party merged together. Claire's laughter echoing over the crowd, her eyes scanning the room, making sure we were all present, orbiting her like planets around the sun each year. I had been there, always present, smiling when I wanted to leave early, pretending that my heart wasn't quietly heavy. The subtle disappointment when someone couldn't make it, the way she would announce it casually in conversation, and the quiet tension that followed for weeks, it all played over and over in my mind. I realized that these moments, once enjoyable and lively, had slowly morphed into rituals of anxiety, obligations, and silent judgment. I began talking to Michael and Jenna again, seeking validation, understanding. Do you ever feel like you're trapped? I asked Michael over a quiet coffee. Michael nodded grimly. Every January, man. Every January. I've tried to skip once, just to see if I could, and it was hell. You think you can ignore it, but she makes it personal. Absence isn't an excuse, it's an offense. Jenna chimed in. It's like walking on a minefield. You show up, you pretend everything's fine. You skip, and you pay the price. And yet, most of us keep going. Why? Because fear is stronger than desire. Her words hit me like a hammer. Fear, that's what had held me hostage all these years. Not love, not friendship, but fear. Fear of disappointing, fear of being alone, fear of conflict. December arrived with its holidays, and with it, the stress intensified. Every group chat ping, every message from Claire, every comment about her birthday felt like a countdown clock. Emily grew more restless, her excitement for Italy tempered by my indecision. One evening, she confronted me again. Mark, you need to choose. Me or this. This obsession with Claire's approval. You can't have both. Her words cut deep. I wanted to explain, to justify, to remind her that Claire wasn't controlling me. But the truth was, she had never needed to. My loyalty, my fear, my conditioning had done it for her. I felt cornered, desperate for a solution, for a way to reconcile both worlds, yet knowing deep down that it wasn't possible, even without realizing it. Claire's influence crept into every interaction. Social media posts subtly boasting about her birthday plans, tagged reminders, photos of past parties, constant updates, an invisible tether I couldn't cut. It wasn't overt. She never demanded, never shouted, but the expectation was always there. I felt it in the quiet messages, in the knowing smiles, in the way she could make an absence feel like a personal failure. It made me anxious, frustrated, exhausted. But worse, it made me doubt my own ability to prioritize my happiness. I started journaling, trying to make sense of my emotions. I wrote about loyalty, obligation, friendship, love, and self-sacrifice. I traced the arc of my decisions over the past 5 years, wondering how a simple birthday had become the measuring stick for my life choices. I realized I had been living in a bubble of anxiety and fear, conditioned by Claire's expectations rather than by my own values. Every decision I had made, every cancelled plan, every sigh from Emily, every quiet resentment from family traced back to a single, recurring date, and now, standing on the edge of a potential life-changing trip, I had to decide, break the ritual or continue living in its shadow. By the end of December, the choice was unavoidable. Flights were booked, apartments in Tuscany reserved, the excitement palpable. Emily's eyes sparkled whenever she talked about the trip, yet I could see the tension in her smile, the hesitation in her laughter. I spent long nights staring at the calendar, imagining every possible outcome. If I went to Italy, I might hurt Claire, damage a friendship that had defined my adult life. If I stayed for her birthday, I might lose Emily's trust, perhaps even our relationship. It felt impossible, and yet I knew something deep inside me had shifted. I could no longer ignore the quiet voice that whispered, "This is your life, your happiness, not hers." New Year's Eve approached. Fireworks, celebrations, and the promise of a fresh start lingered in the air. Emily and I sat on the balcony, watching the city glitter below. "Have you decided?" she asked, her voice gentle but unwavering. I looked out over the skyline, the noise and lights reflecting my internal chaos. I think I know what I have to do," I said. Her hand found mine. "Good, because whatever you choose, I need to know you're choosing it for you. Not fear, not obligation, not guilt." I nodded. The truth was, I had never felt so raw, so exposed, so alive in my life. The decision I was about to make would define not just January, but every year after that. January 4th arrived with an almost absurd clarity. Sunlight poured through the blinds, casting stripes of gold across our bedroom. Emily was awake, her luggage partially packed, the excitement in her eyes muted by the tension that had hovered over us for months. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the calendar. January 5th, Claire's birthday. The weight of every past year pressed on my shoulders. Every smile I had forced, every plan I had cancelled, every subtle disappointment I had endured, all led to this single moment. Emily touched my arm softly. "Whatever you decide, just be honest." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. Honesty, that was what I had been avoiding all these years. Hiding behind obligations, courtesy, fear. I sent Claire a message. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard longer than I expected, each word carrying the weight of years of loyalty and tension. "Hey Claire, I need to be honest with you this year. I won't be at your birthday party. Emily and I are going to Italy, and I hope you can understand. I care about you a lot, but this is something I need to do for us." I hit send immediately. A familiar anxiety rose like a tide. Would she be furious? Would she cut me off? Would our friendship, this pillar of my adult life, collapse in an instant? Her reply came within minutes. "Wow, I don't know what to say. I guess I understand. I'll be sad not to see you, but I guess I can't make you choose me. Enjoy Italy." Seriously, I stared at the message, shocked. It wasn't anger. It wasn't punishment. Just acceptance. A little sadness, yes, but nothing like I had built up in my mind over years. When I told Emily, her reaction was immediate. She wrapped her arms around me, her eyes shining. "You did it," she whispered. "You finally chose us." And for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my chest. Not just the fear of Claire, but the invisible chains that had held me captive to obligation and habit. We hugged, and it felt like a rebirth, a promise that the life we wanted could exist outside of someone else's expectations. Italy was everything we had dreamed of. Tuscany's rolling hills, Florence's historic streets, Rome's bustling piazzas, all of it felt like freedom incarnate. Every sunset, every quiet morning in a cafe, every shared laugh was a small rebellion against years of fear. Yet even amidst the joy, I reflected on Qley's influence. I realized that she had been a mirror, showing me both the depth of loyalty and the dangers of letting others control my life. It wasn't malice. It was her own way of valuing presence and attention. But I had learned my own limits, my own priorities. When we returned to Sydney, January had slipped by. Messages from Qley were polite, even warm, but brief. Friends teased me, half seriously. "Did you survive the apocalypse?" I smiled, realizing that the world hadn't ended. Life didn't collapse because I chose differently. People moved on, relationships adapted, and I had reclaimed ownership of my own choices. In the weeks that followed, I journaled more than ever. I wrote about loyalty, love, and the invisible threads that tie us to others' expectations. I realized that friendship is valuable, yes, but it should not be suffocating. Love, too, requires courage and self-respect. Qley and I remained friends, but the dynamic shifted. She learned, slowly, that my presence wasn't guaranteed every year. And I learned that loyalty doesn't have to mean self-sacrifice. Emily and I grew closer, bound by shared adventure and trust. I came to understand something fundamental. Fear is a powerful motivator, but it's also a cage. Obligation without choice becomes burden, and sometimes the hardest act of love is choosing yourself for your life, your happiness, and your future. Qley's birthday was still important. We celebrated together later that month, in a smaller, quieter way, filled with laughter and warmth instead of tension. It wasn't the grand spectacle of past years, but it was genuine, and that mattered more than the fireworks or the perfect rooftop view. Life settled into a new rhythm. I no longer dreaded January. I had learned to set boundaries without guilt. Emily and I continued to travel, explore, and dream, knowing that friendship and love can coexist, but not at the expense of your own autonomy. Looking back, I realized the birthday was never about the date, the party, or even Qley herself. It was about learning who I was, what I valued, and what I was willing to stand for. And in that realization, I finally found peace. Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that define us. Choosing love over obligation, freedom over fear, honesty over habit. These are the moments that shape who we are. Qley remained an important part of my life. Emily, my partner and confidant, and me. I was finally free, carrying forward lessons that a single birthday had quietly taught me over years. Loyalty is valuable, but self-respect is priceless, and maybe that is the most important celebration of all.